St. Patrick's Day and it's Red Nose, but it's not everything is a laughing at the moment. And I think it's important that we bring these issues to the forefront. And we've got Jess McQuaid joining us. Save Our Wild Isles. Good morning, Jess. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me on today to speak about the BBC series and the campaign that runs alongside it.
Yeah, and it's a massive campaign. Do you mind just giving us an overview as to what the series is and what it's all about?
Sure, thank you. So Wild Isles is a BBC series. I'm hoping that many of you watched it on Sunday with David Attenborough. And it's really an opportunity to show the beauty that exists kind of on our doorstep in the UK. Often we have these incredible series looking at global wildlife, but we have so much wildlife that's amazing on our doorsteps. So orcas, bees, beavers, ancient oak trees, and of course puffins, which I'm sure we'll come to talk about. Because Pembrokeshire is really related to puffins. We have some of the strongest colonies, but there's an underlying message I think a lot of people will have picked up on through the narrative that David Attenborough was given, which is whilst there's the beauty that exists, it's really, really fragile, and we're at a critical point in history where we need to come together as people, communities, businesses, politicians, to transform the way that we support nature and engage nature. Otherwise, we're kind of going to lose it, quite frankly. So alongside the series, so there's a series of episodes, and then there's live episodes, and there's going to be an episode on iPlayer as well, which will then also launch the campaign that sits alongside the series, which is a campaign run by National Trust, RSPB, and WWF. So that's kind of the idea of that campaign is once everyone's watched the series, they'll hopefully be extremely motivated, engaged to try and take action to save nature that's around us or starting to decline, or is declining rather. So there's a campaign with a whole host of actions that people can take alongside it.
Yeah. And you raise a very valid point there. Usually when we watch documentaries, it's Blue Planet and it's the Antarctic or it's the Serengeti in Africa. But we forget that our tiny island jutting out into the Northern Sea and the Atlantic Ocean is actually really diverse, and has been very diverse for centuries. But it is declining, isn't it, because of increases in population and increase of the suburbs and urban areas. So what have been some of the highlights, or are you able to give some of the highlights as to some of the animals that are found on our wild isles in this documentary?
Well, I mean, we've already seen some of them. The puffins, they were the main feature of the last one, and beavers and orcas. And I think the next series now is going to look at woodlands. So it's picking types of habitats and understanding those habitats and what exists around them. Because one of the critical reasons around nature's decline is habitat loss. So we need to understand how nature needs a home, how to protect their habitat to enable nature to still exist and coexist alongside people. So the series starts to explore that. I think in the first episode we learned about, I think, is it the dormouse, and kind of some of the challenges. And I think one of the places it still exists is in Wales. And so it is very much around educating people to understand about habitat and how we protect that. And that can be in your garden. For example, you can create a home for nature in your garden, but also it can be, taking action to show politicians that you care and getting them to take policies, spend money on habitat creation, for example. So, I mean, I just wanted to share, because when we think about nature, we kind of think we've got this amazing, green, wonderful country, which we have, and we're really lucky in Wales to have that, and even more lucky in Pembrokeshire. But the statistics that were shared on the first series by David Attenborough was that the UK is in the bottom 10% of 240 countries tested for biodiversity intactness. So we are one of the worst countries in terms of our biodiversity, our nature. So there's a real disconnect between the nature that we love and the understanding that actually it's in decline. So as part of the series, a YouGov survey was undertaken, and only 4% of people thought that the UK was one of the worst countries in terms of its nature intactness, when actually it's near the bottom.
Gosh,
so there's this huge disconnect between the things that we love and understanding actually that this is really in trouble. Sorry, that's quite a big statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much, yeah, but I think that's why we're running this campaign, is because it there's so much we can do. So we've got a website that's been launched, which kind of breaks down what you can do in your garden, with your diet, kind of how you can join your community groups, etc., etc. So there's lots people can do, and that's what this campaign and series is hopefully aiming to do, is to mobilize people to take action.
Actually thinking about that, because like you say, here in Pembrokeshire we've got the fabulous puffins on Skomer, we've got the red squirrel on Caldy Island, we've read about that recently. But you're saying, it's actually, yes, we've got these lovely things around us, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing about Pembrokeshire, the reason we've got amazing pockets of really dense nature rich areas, and that's often because they've been protected. So our coastline is a national park, we've got lots of sites of special interest, etc. But even within those sites, the way we live our life and the way industry is and the way that agriculture can sometimes be run has an effect on biodiversity, on nature. And it's that drip, drip, drip impact over time that kind of accumulates. So say, for example, the rivers, we've got the River Cleddau, which is a special area of conservation. So you'd think that is protected, but actually it's got lots of rare wildlife. It's kind of got lots of bathing spots along there as well. But it's actually failing in its status in terms of its phosphates target. So essentially there's lots of along that catchment, there's quite a lot of intensive dairy farming, and over years and years of impact has led to very high phosphate levels in that river, which affects wildlife essentially.
And then is there guidance on this website so you can kind of approach, because it's not just individuals, it's businesses and politicians, is that right? You want to go from top to bottom and bottom to top with this campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. And it does, it talks about businesses, what they can do. So we're hoping that businesses will have a discussion around their boardroom, like look at their supply chains. And there's lots of actually really sustainable businesses in Pembrokeshire, that you can support. I think a lot of people in Pembrokeshire are conscious of sustainability and nature. So you can use sustainable businesses where they exist. There's also a schools education resource, which is fantastic. If kids are watching this with their parents on a Sunday evening and they're going into school and the teachers are hearing it, go to our website. There's some amazing resources that schools can use. And then politicians. So Wales is devolved, so we've got our own government. So how we ask Welsh Government to take action is really important. And there's a couple of campaigns specifically that are running at the moment. There's one around the agriculture bill. So there's a big piece of legislation going through Welsh government at the moment, which is looking at farm payments in the future post-Brexit. And we're trying to encourage Welsh Government to ensure that nature is part of that new farm payment, how we can support farmers to farm for nature. And then also, so there's a campaign on the WWF Cymru website about that, but also one of the key things we're looking at as well in terms of nature restoration conservation is seagrass. So we've got seagrass sites in Pembrokeshire. There's one around Dale, which has been planted, I think, 2 years ago, which is fantastic. I think it's one of the biggest plantations at the time. So we are calling on Welsh Government to have a really comprehensive seagrass restoration project across Wales, because it's a great marine habitat which will give that home essentially for marine species and wildlife.
Wow, that's incredible. And what is this website? What people need to go to find all this information?
Yeah, so WWF Cymru, We've got a website where they can take action. But the main campaign is Save Our Wild Isles. And that's got a whole load of resources for people to explore. And the main ask is for people to go wild once a week. So essentially decide what action you like to do, whether that's, pollinating your garden with beautiful wildflowers, or maybe going and having a swim in the sea and connecting with nature around you. Because this is all about kind of reconnecting with nature, because the more you reconnect with it, the more you'll want to invest in kind of saving what's around you or helping to create it. So yeah, that's the hope anyway.
Love that idea.
So we'll wait to see how you go wild. Are you going to commit to that, to going wild?
We go wild every Friday here, don't we, Tom?
Well, maybe next Friday or a couple Fridays.
We do.
You can tell me how you're going wild.
Yeah.
There you go. I want to build like a hedgehog hotel. I've seen some wonderful images of those.
Yeah.
Just a simple way that you can make your garden a safer space for wildlife and for nature in your own garden. There's such simple ways that you can do it, as well as the big grand ones as well. Save Our Wild Isles. Catch up on that documentary. It's on the BBC. It's on the iPlayer, and go to the website WWF Cymru, and also the Save Our Wild Isles campaign. Give that a Google, and you'll find out more information there. Jess, thank you so much for joining us this morning and making us aware of this. The fact that, as you say, we can be quite narrow-minded and be like, yeah, look, we've got green fields. We must be brilliant at biodiversity and looking after nature, when actually we are underperforming in lots of many ways. So let this be a moment where we can look up and think, oh, actually, it's not just about the African deserts or the rainforests. It's about our own fields and woodlands and beaches and rivers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you. Talking of animals, though, Gina, we have had a song request from an animal that's not native to these shores.
We have indeed. Callum Watling, good morning to you. And his Feel Good Friday request is Lionheart. It's on the way.
It's on the way. Jess McQuaid, thank you so much for joining us. And if you just joined us, you can go and listen back on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Lionheart and some Traffic and Travel on the way. And Llewellyn Hopwood's joining us. He's got a talk at the St. David's Festival of Ideas, so don't go anywhere.
Feel Good Friday with Pems Paving.